So this is the document I've created from the IEP transition form. It looks exactly like it, but it will be in a Word doc for you so that you can add more pieces to it. It gives you a little more room to type. But let's go over part of it. So up at the top you include the student's name, the date of birth, the date of the IEP, and the page number. And then as you look down, it asks if the student did not attend the IEP to describe the steps that were taken to ensure consideration of the student's performance and goals. And in this instance, you can just say the student attended the IEP because we're going to assume the student attended your IEP. Then these first sections, the very first top section with the 4 questions about adult living, career employment, community participation, and post-secondary education training, is information you will get from the transition page I included in the mock assessment for Sarah. So this is the student's information, and I've used my son Tyler kind of as an example. So adult living. As an adult, where do you want to live? And in his transition survey, he said, I want to live in a house or an apartment independently. Career employment. As an adult, what kind of work do you want to do? And he said, I want to become a conservation officer or a park ranger. And community participation. As an adult, what hobbies and activities do you want to have? And he likes to camp, hunt and trap and fish. He also likes to watch movies and play video games with his friends. And he's on the school swim team. And then post-secondary education training. After high school, what additional education and training do you want? And he said, I need to find out about available programs that train park rangers and conservation officers. So based on his information and his other needs in the PLAP, so I'm going to say he had a writing need and a math need and a reading need. We're going to create activities that he is going to perform or do that will help him move towards being able to reach his goal or his vision of being a park ranger. So under adult living, he wants to live in a house or apartment independently. Well, he's never really done anything related to that. So one of the first activities that I put in was talk to an apartment manager about what it requires to rent an apartment. Then you have to have an assessment piece. So I'm going to say that he has to do a report on an interview that he did with that manager. And who's going to be responsible for these activities? It's going to be Tyler and his family. And the timeline is optional, but I'd like you to include it. So I'm going to say he needs to complete this first activity by October 2016. Then I put a second activity. Remember, these are coordinated activities. They should be steps, almost like short-term objectives, but you don't have to write them that way. So the next thing he has to do after he talks to an apartment manager is to locate an apartment, visit it, and complete an application to rent it. So what he would do as an assessment would be that he has to have a visit set up. And actually you could put here that a completed application is done. He has to bring you a copy. And it's Tyler and his family, and he has to do this by January 2016. The next thing that he's going to work on is daily living skills. Well, if you want to live independently, and he has a math need, so his math is lower. And if you saw his assessments and stuff, you would see that. But I'm just telling you, like, his math activities are lower. So he's going to have to do a weekly budget because he needs to know how much money he makes and how much he's going to have for his apartment. And the assessment will be the completed budget. Tyler's going to have to do it. And the weekly budget needs to be done throughout the first semester. So he needs to kind of independently be doing that by the end of the first semester. He's going to do a monthly budget then. Same thing, completed budget, Tyler, and he needs to be doing this by the end of the second semester, doing a monthly budget for himself. Okay? And that's also going to help him work towards getting an apartment, okay, because he's going to know how much money he had. Functional vocational evaluation. I put considered and none is needed here. The student has a job after school and does not need assistance in this area. So remember I said, if you look at one of these areas and you don't think you need to do any transition activities to help the student, you need to write considered and none needed. And then tell me why you don't think any are needed in this area. Then you can just put not applicable, not applicable, not applicable. Okay? The next one is employment. he needs to do, so for outside, we're talking his employment after he gets out of school. What's he looking at doing? So he needs to do some career exploration, learn about a job, like outlooks into a park ranger. So he has to do a report, and it's going to be Tyler and his teacher, and he has to have it completed by the end of the first 9 weeks. I could actually add another activity here where maybe he has to job shadow somebody who's a park ranger, like go to a state park and job shadow. So I could add another activity here if I wanted to. Community participation. I considered it and none is needed. Tyler is already involved in after-school activities, in school and outside of school. So this is not applicable. He does not need our assistance or any activities to be independent in that area. Related service, once again, considered and none needed. Tyler does not need to be connected with outside agencies at this time. He doesn't need Goodwill to do job coaching for a job. At this point, he doesn't need to get connected with Michigan Rehab Services. He doesn't need any physical therapy, speech therapy, any other services. Further education. Well, he wants to go and be a park ranger, so he needs to figure out schools that have programs for park rangers and conservation officers. And you can abbreviate here if you need to shorten it up a little bit, as long as everybody understands what you're talking about. Create a list of schools, and then that's going to be Tyler, and he has to do this by the end of the second 9 weeks. Then once he completes that, the next activity is to visit 2 of the schools on the list. And he has to confirm a visit. It's going to be Tyler and his family because they're going to take him for the visit, and he has to do this by the end of the second semester. And then other activities, he needs to find out what's needed to get his driver's license, because if he's going to go to school, he might potentially need his driver's license. So he needs to find out. And that's going to be the teacher's going to do a check that he did that, or he can make a phone call to do it and the teacher can listen in, any of those things, Tyler and his family, and he needs to do it by the end of the second semester. The student may need more activities, and so you can include as many activities as you need to in the IEP in order to help them during that IEP session. So for part of your assignment, you're going to need to figure out what Sarah needs, and for each area she needs, I'd like you to do, if she needs adult living activities, I want you to write at least 2 of them so they're coordinated. They have to be in sync and follow each other. They have to be connected. So I want to see that you understand that they have to be coordinated and make sense for the student. There's steps to help them become independent after school and to reach their vision. So they have to be connected to the student's vision. And then at the bottom it says, was there a need to invite a community agency representative likely to participate, provide current or future services? And so for Tyler there wasn't, so I would mark no here. And if yes, did the community agency representative attend the IEP, but you don't have to do that because there was none. And then please list any additional steps taken to ensure that the student has made connections with any appropriate outside programs and services. So if you need to say, oh, a meeting's going to be set up for them to do an intake or whatever. But you'll have to decide that with Sarah whether she needs any connections, and then you can answer that part of the form appropriately. So that's what you're going to use to complete your transition plan for Sarah.